right now on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks. Hi, everyone. Alexis Brooks here from Higher Journeys. So glad that you've decided to tune in today for what I guarantee will be an eye-opening and inspiring discussion. Now, I know many of you out there have seen the landmark documentary film, Thrive. What on earth will it take? In fact, this film boasts close to, get this, 100 million views and has been translated into 27 languages. Now, that's a big deal. Considered one of the gold standards of truth within the alternative media, Thrive gave us a comprehensive, and I do mean comprehensive, look behind the Iron Curtain as to the history up to the present day about what's really going on in our convoluted system of modern society. From the social and economic condition to health and environment to science and spirituality and beyond. This film left no stone unturned on getting its millions of viewers up to speed on what has been and continues to be, well, our plight. However, what I loved about the original Thrive is that despite it all, we as a people were built to thrive, not just survive. And Thrive's ultimate mission was and continues to be for all of us to know and live that truth. Just when you think that Thrive 1 told the whole story, albeit back in 2011, along comes Thrive 2, released just this past year. Thrive 2, This Is What It Takes, explores breakthrough innovations from around the world, unpacks the principles they have in common, and offers insights and tools and strategies for reclaiming our lives and our future. My guest today is Kimberly Carter Gamble, the woman behind both Thrive 1 and 2. She's a producer, director, and co-writer of both films, along with her husband and the other half of this dynamic duo, Foster Gamble. Kimberly and I had a wonderful reunion. We haven't spoken in nearly 10 years. When Thrive initially came out, I had Kimberly on the show in the very early days of Higher Journeys. In fact, at the time, it was called Conscious Inquiry. Well, needless to say, we had a lot to catch up on. How could we not, with all that's going on right now? I'd say Thrive 2 is more necessary than ever before. And my conversation with Kimberly Carter Gamble, timely and urgent. I hope you'll tune in to the full discussion and then go get the film Thrive 2. You'll be so delighted you did. Enjoy, everyone. Here's the show. Welcome, Journeyers. I think we've just started this show. I love doing it this way, Kimberly. Everyone, say hello to Kimberly Carter Gamble. I have not talked to Kimberly in close to 10 years.
I know.
My, how time flies, and my, how the world has changed, eh?
Yeah. Yes.
Welcome, Kimberly. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Rabbit holes amongst rabbit holes amongst rabbit holes. I don't even know where to start. We're certainly not going to harp on the tumult that is the world that we're living in right now, because to me, both Thrive and now your brilliant baby Thrive 2 is the antithesis of what's not working and what is working, can work, and how the world can understand the dynamics of how that is done. I'm going to dive right in. I don't even have my notes in front of me. I may have to shrink the screen so I can, because I got some good stuff I want to make sure I get in. But I do want to start out with a question about the science that you open up this film with. Now, we know that Thrive, for those of you, and I know many of you out there have seen the brilliant landmark classic at this point, Thrive, the original Thrive. What on earth will it take? What will it take? What on earth will it take?
What on earth will it take? Mm-hmm.
Before it was a question, now it's an answer. Thrive represents to me the perfect balance of science and spirituality and controversy. We'll say, we'll call it that. Everything, our beauty, our oneness, everything is in there. And that's appreciated. And that's what this is about. In Thrive 2, you cover the gamut as well, but you put a heavy emphasis on the science of the universe, the unified field. You really dig into that. You do for other areas, but we really, really plunge into the science of it. How did you make the decision to start with that, to make that sort of the impetus?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. So Thrive One, just so for the context of this, it just took off. Like you said, it came out 9 years ago, and it ended up quickly with 91 million documented views in 27 languages. And we heard from all these people who said, geez, if you had this understanding, you might also be interested in what I've developed over here. And it was everything from new energy technologies in Africa or Russia or Thailand or all through the United States, Europe. Anyway, we heard from people from all over, or different health technologies, or a shaman from Peru saying, check out this for consciousness raising. And anyway, we heard from all these people, and we did not intend to make a Thrive 2. It takes a lot of work. But we just saw so many solutions, and most people we knew were feeling pretty down about the state of the world. And we thought, God, you should know about all this. So anyway, we went and we put together these teams of engineers and scientists and psychics and all kinds of people to travel with us to go check out some of the best seeming new technologies and insights in order to see what really held up. And in the course of that, this is an answer to why did we start with the science. We discovered that everybody who had the best documented solutions were operating with a similar understanding that we're part of an alive, interconnected cosmos, and it's an organized web of energy, and that there are knowable ways to engage with it, whether for the energy technology, for healing, for consciousness expansion, that they were all had a common understanding of this unified field. That's the term for it. It's what Einstein was looking for. And so we said, if we make this movie, the unified field will be the star. So like starring the unified field, because it's really the basis from which everything is emerging. And then the question became, as filmmakers, how do you make science interesting to people? And it's not commonly sort of registered, but in fact, science is a huge part, probably the main determinant of a culture's worldview, is defined by science and what we believe is possible. And so if you think you're in a, dead entropic universe, then things like competition and scarcity and just a way of relating that we've been in makes sense. Go ahead, plunder the planet, it's all dying anyway. Compared to that, there's actually a way through resonance to work in harmony with what is available in all those realms. And so we thought, well, if we could show the possibilities that are emerging from this and then dive into the science and illustrate it as beautifully as we possibly could.
Which you did. It's gorgeous. The cinematography is amazing, as usual. No surprise.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and the visual effects team, who's just a wonderful group, they worked with cosmologist Nassim Haramein to get the most accurate, up-to-date understanding of quantum physics to inform the visuals. So you can see in the movie that, it's beautiful, and we really do our best to help show that science and spirit are one. It's just two different ways of exploring the same phenomenon. That's why the same understanding works for expanding our consciousness as for accessing new energy technology.
So happy to see who I can now call my buddy Nassim. He's been on the show a couple of times back when we were doing face-to-face on location interviews. And I was so delighted to see he played an integral role once again, no surprise, as well as the Taurus playing a starring role.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. I never get tired of talking about the brilliance of that ubiquitous piece of geometry that seems to be everywhere and tells such a big story. The torus. Let's talk about that for
Yeah.
a bit.
Well, it's funny when I met Foster and he was talking about there being this fundamental pattern in the universe. And I hadn't really spent any time thinking about a fundamental pattern in the universe. I was much more oriented toward sort of what's going on and all these problems and how are we going to solve them. And then, as we talked and explored it, and he said, look, it's the ultimate symbol of sustainability. If you have something that works at every scale and it can be both distinct and unified at the same time, you've got a model for every single thing that needs to evolve from there. Our relationship with ourselves, with each other, with the planet, and all of that. So, in fact, this understanding that something can be true at every scale and that there are fundamental principles and like the structure and flow of that. And I personally use it a lot as a model in my relationship. I think this whole thing about being distinct and unified is probably the biggest challenge
It's
of
paradoxical.
relationship,
Yeah, it's a
right?
paradox. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I'm going to just say, sorry to interrupt, but I got to get
yeah,
this in. David Bohm has illustrated this beautifully in one phrase that he used that I quote all the time. And I believe you used an illustration of whirlpools in your film.
yeah,
He
yeah,
said something to the effect of, we are like whirlpools in a stream. We have identity, but we do not have distinct borders. And he
yeah,
was really talking about that same fundamental,
yeah.
what would otherwise be a paradox. How can you be separate and not really separate, unique, and yet no lines of demarcation at the same time? And you
Right.
illustrated that beautifully as well.
Thank you. I think it helps, and that's where science and spirit are one, to know that, like, the whirlpool is made of the medium in which it exists. We are made of the medium in which we exist, and we are distinct within it. And understanding who we are in relation to that and our own purpose, and
Mhm.
everything then flows from that basic understanding.
Yeah. I doing a little prep today, I discovered a couple of things about you that I didn't know. Another is that you're an avid gardener, as am
I
I. I love gardening, and lately, Kimberly, it's been about the house plants for me because now there's no garden outside. I have to wait a couple more months. But I bring that up in this context because understanding the unification that we have with nature, and a lot of people still feel, oh, I know that's lovely, but it is more than a notion. I always say nature is more than a metaphor. It is a mirror. We
Yeah.
are of it, it of us.
Mhm.
How does your relationship with the natural world relate to this whole idea? How would you juxtapose the two from a quasi-scientific perspective, from the
Yeah.
tourist to our
Well,
interaction with nature?
I I feel like everything I've ever learned, I have learned from the garden, at least as one source of the knowing, right? Even how I go along, like, I've worked with UC Berkeley has a department that's working on cultivating native bees in response to bee colony collapse. And so they were teaching me different plants to put in. And so I just would put them all over to see, well, where do they do best, right? There's a relationship here between the plant and the soil and the environment. And I now have over 78 species of native bees in my garden here
Oh my
in Northern
goodness.
California. And it's really fun to see because we have big issues with the various frequency pollution and other things that are threatening and really harming bees. And so to cultivate other pollinators is important, and to just spend time touching the earth and being in close relationship to its cycles. I think this cycle is a big, huge part of it, in our relationship with that,
Mhm.
because one of the issues that we face, I think, is kind of a chronic, constant growth mentality, whether it's with the economy or input of any sort. It's just constant. And the downtime and the stillness is actually one of the main things that we learned about in the course of checking out all of these various innovations and solutions is that they all talked about stillness as the portal. And that stillness to me is part of the cycle where there's a time for everything. And the other part about it was that stillness is not really still.
I was just going to say, that's right.
It's this rhythmic, balanced interchange of energy. And you really see that nothing's still in the garden. I mean, you sit still quietly long enough and you will hear it's an orgy of interaction nonstop out there, whether it's underground in the colder seasons or above ground when spring and summer come. But it's what's happening. And so all of that helps inform me. And also, every now and then something will come through and kind of wipe out some big part of it. And I know enough, thankfully, to let that be also and watch the natural healing that will take place as the immune system of the whole ecosystem will kick into gear. So as long as the soil's healthy, then I know that we'll come back from whatever it is. And I certainly use that in my own body's health as well.
Mm-hmm. The brilliance of the universe being self-correcting.
Yeah.
So resilient despite what's thrown at it. And obviously we know so much more is being thrown at it, but it still seems to prevail. But we've got to work along with it.
Yeah.
There's
absolutely.
a symbiosis, I think, definitely between us as living organisms as well as the organism of Gaia and beyond. So.
Yeah, I think that it's one of the things I've been studying a lot, the whole AI agenda and how that overlays with things. And it's an interesting thing because there are a lot of people in that who don't really value what they refer to as carbon-based evolution, the natural world. And if you don't value it, then you're more willing to destroy it. And I think we really see that. And so this reverence for nature and exposure to the just intricacies of its brilliance, I feel is such an important part of our work. And it's one of the reasons we really wanted to take time to share our reverence for the natural world in Thrive 2.
Beautiful. Well, before we go any further, I think we would be remiss, Kimberly Carter Gamble, if we didn't give people a little teaser so that we can whet their appetite to go get it, because I know y'all are going to want to do it. So we're going to show you the trailer, and on the other side of this, we'll continue our conversation with Kimberly Carter Gamble. Watch this.
There is a story we've heard so many times, it's rarely questioned. It says we live in a finite, disconnected universe, that nature is to be dominated. Starvation and poverty are inevitable. There are rulers and those who are ruled. That our bodies are simply machines. That events are random. And we have no control over our own reality. This is the story we've heard 1,000 times. But what if it's all a lie? A lie designed to keep us disconnected, disillusioned, defeated, and down. What if the universe is alive? What if we could access free, limitless energy?
The background energy of everything around us is full of power.
What if we could cure cancer?
After 9 weeks, my tumor was completely gone.
What if we could expand consciousness?
Consciousness is information. It has a pattern to it.
What if we could liberate the world?
Some people have the idea that if something is legal, it's moral.
Morality doesn't work that way. If it's wrong for me and him and him and him and him and him, it's wrong for anybody, including government.
From the creators of Thrive 1, one of the most widely seen documentaries in history,
I'm Kimberly Carter Gamble.
And I'm Foster Gamble.
comes a film like no other.
Virtually every solution we found has been made illegal or suppressed.
Their agenda is not a thriving world for everyone, but global control by an elite few.
That rewrites the story by revealing the fundamental fabric that empowers and connects us all.
There's a huge change that happens in the civilization when they finally understand that there's a fundamental field that they're bathing in and that they can access it.
We're very, very close to a true unified theory that is backed by consistent, relatable mathematics.
We heard from over 1,000 innovators from all over the world.
Our attention shifted from possibilities to results.
The test is successful.
The ability to tap the potential of the field is what gives us the evolutionary edge that our ancestors never had. The edge to not only survive, but to thrive.
When millions of people say, we're not going to do this anymore, that can end entire empires without firing a shot.
Is there something that we're not aware of yet, the knowing of which would actually transform the quality of life on Earth and have us thriving? Let's find out.
Thrive 2. This is what it takes. Launching globally 2020.
Kimberly, wow, is all I can say. Quick question.
Thank you.
What do you think was the most challenging part of this very, very, I'm sure, arduous and brilliant film? What was the most difficult in portraying or putting together in this film?
Let's see. Probably, well, there was a huge amount of travel involved in working with various inventors who were intentionally off the radar. And so navigating various security things and all that was sort of the logistically challenging part. And I would say the other part is just the place for fearless inquiry these days. That's always, it's really interested me to just be alive to whatever I'm curious about and explore it. And watching how it's happening, that people are being more and more conditioned to not even ask certain questions or push the boundaries of what we might think is possible, but what about this, or listen to another person's idea. All of that, which it's one of my favorite things about Foster. It's just been a fascinating life together because there's definitely no place he won't go to explore, and not naively and gullibly, but in order to see, so what is possible? What is this person saying? And what are the implications of that? And to find it, the course of this helped us to really find our allies, and really for me personally, to understand how controversial some things are that I wouldn't have thought are particularly controversial. So I brought in some people who didn't share our worldview or experience, actually, to help write the script so that I could sort of unpack it a little bit and explain things in a way that, like, well, what about this? Instead of, whoa, watch this, you guys, it's so far out.
Right, brilliant.
So that really helped. And we've done that each time to make sure that our team has people with a range of worldviews, because I think that's just a more valuable way to explore something. So that was challenging and valuable, I would say. And then, of course, what happened was, so we traveled all over the place. Mm-hmm. And as the movie reflects, it's fun to be able to go with us on these various trips to explore these fantastic people, from shaman in, South America to inventors in Africa. And like I said, Thailand, everywhere. Wow. And then we got back and we only had the beginning and the end scene left to film when COVID hit and everything started to be locked down. And those were 2 outdoor scenes. So we just said, quick, let's go get those things right now before we can't. So we filmed those 2 things in a day, got back, and thankfully everything was then in the can and we could work remotely from there. So we were very fortunate. And then we did go back and get footage of COVID in order to put the movie in that context. And, you know, it was funny because in Thrive 1, we have a slide, and one of the frames in Thrive 1 has man-made pandemic, intense frequency radiation, forced vaccines, totalitarian takeover, or something like that, all in one frame. Like we said, look, if this continues to go the way it's going, we're going to get stuck in a really bad situation. And we said that 10 years ago in Thrive 1. And so when COVID hit, it was a way to say, here's something that's playing out, and let's really pay attention and see what part of a larger picture, what part of that picture is this. And so it doesn't mean that there isn't a problem and that there aren't people suffering from it. That's not the point. It's what's the overall picture in which it exists. And so having the opportunity to kind of put that overlay into the film, it's interesting because if you see the film, you would think what we're talking about, like, it's more relevant than ever. I think it's helped people to be ready for Thrive 2 because we really question authority. I mean, sort of the punchline of the movie is, look, we take you on a tour to see all of these solutions all over the place. Why don't we have them? And why is it that some people get to have the authority to keep these things from us, to keep information from us? And we suggest that, as the trailer mentioned, you know, there's a difference between what's legal and what's moral. And it's time that we really stand up to that. And I believe say no to that level of suppression of information and possibility, and claim our own authority to have thriving, decentralized lives all over this planet with all kinds of clean energy and good, you know, health technologies and practices for good prevention of illness, early diagnosis of illness, natural cures of illness, all that kind of stuff. So we get into that in Thrive 2, of course, but it's all within this, like, Thrive 2, this is what it takes. It's a very solution-oriented, hopeful movie.
Agreed. Well, you've been consistent in the message and being comprehensive and presenting the problems as well as the solutions, the backstory. I'm putting up a banner right now so folks know we are going to take a special segment over to the after show where Kimberly has agreed to go a little bit deeper into some areas that certain venues you can't necessarily go deeper into. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? So join us for the after show right after we finish this lovely conversation. Thank you for that, Kimberly.
Yes, of course.
Oh boy, you really made it by the skin of your teeth, didn't you?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that you were so close to current, you know, because I know that you take your time in producing and creating and producing and putting out a film. And
we didn't take as long on this one. Last time we had 8 years. This time it was 2 years.
It was only 2?
Yeah, it was only 2 years. We weren't planning to make a Thrive 2. We were really just checking out these different solutions. And it was only because they were so compelling and important, and because we realized we were the only ones who knew all of them, and that if they knew each other and the world knew about them, we'd all be in better shape. So it just seemed sort of inappropriate and selfish to keep that knowledge to ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've done so many wonderful things. A lot of people feel that it's just the film, first the original Thrive and now Thrive 2, but you've got a whole movement happening at thriveon.com. Tell us a little bit about that, some of the other things that you have complementing the movie.
I'm very excited about it, actually, because I have tremendous faith in people. I love people. I love to see the innovations that are possible when people realize who they are and what they're capable of. And I see it happening now in response to what's going on the planet. There are people in every county all over the planet, region, organizing to help really make sure that very hard-won freedoms are not lost now, and that we're able to especially maintain certain levels of health freedom that's just defined by owning our own bodies. And so we're launching something called the Thrive Solutions Hub, which is a free open source web app designed to help people find each other and organize by issue, topic, and region. So if there's some aspect of what's going on that most concerns you, whether you're a parent and it's your kid's education in this new situation, or it's alternative health care responses to COVID, or the science behind the masks, or you name it, whatever it might be that you want to understand better or organize around community food options, then you can use the Thrive Solutions Hub. So we'll be launching that. I can't give an exact date. I'm just in a meeting after this one to get that sorted, but it'll be soon. And I'm very excited for that. And that will be at thriveon.com that you access the Solutions Hub. And then the other thing is we have the Freedom Portal, which is after you see Thrive 2 and you think, whoa, I mean, obviously there's so much that we couldn't get in there. And there are deeper conversations to explore. And Foster takes the lead in that, in having a lot of fabulous deep dives, 3 weekends out of every month into a different subject. And I'm going to be joining him for the topic of health freedom in March. So we'll have a series on the 6th, the 13th, and the 27th. We'll be with Greg Braden, who will join us there talking about transhumanism and the new science of self-empowerment. So we're really going at health freedom and the full array of interface with AI and data and the fourth industrial revolution, and things that people really need to understand as we move forward into, this huge technological overlay over our biological existence and how we want to relate to that. So anyway, the Freedom Portal is really fun. That's a subscription. The Solutions Hub will be a free app, and we just are doing everything we can to empower people to take control of our lives and help one another.
What a mission the two of you are on. Of course, you were destined to come together. And I have a feeling, Kimberly, this wasn't your first go round in partnership. I don't know, maybe you've had that conversation. You don't need to share that with us, but the things that you were doing, I want you to know that the initial Thrive film is still, to this day, my go-to reference when I'm talking to others who want to learn more. I point to Thrive. I've been doing it ever since it came out, and I mean it. I think it is the necessary, I call it a primer. It's a lot deeper than a primer, but it's the one thing that I could point to where people, when you start getting into conversations about what's really going on, how, and the context for how all of this has happened, and as well as our capability, the first question people have, particularly when it comes to what's happened to us, is, well, why is this happening? Why would they do this et al? And the only way I can answer the question is Thrive, watch the movie, and you'll understand.
Well, it's not a quick conversation. You have to be able to take some time to unravel it. And it's funny, Thrive is being watched now by hundreds of thousands of new people every month, because I think it's actually becoming relevant again in a way. People who were close to it before are saying, wait a minute, what? These same people who went off with trillions of dollars in the 2008 collapse are going off with trillions of dollars now. And let me figure this out a little bit. And what about the financial incentives and the control incentives? And so, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm very grateful that it's been helpful for people. My great hope with Thrive 2, it kind of it delivers on the promise of Thrive 1. So I love it if someone's seen Thrive 1 and then sees Thrive 2, they both stand alone.
Absolutely.
But the idea is to recognize the the truth of our capacity for self-empowerment and self-realization. We really do have what it takes to thrive. And so given that, what do we need to do to claim it? And that's sort of the mirror we're hoping to hold up at this stage of our lives for people to be able to see themselves within this context of a thriving world.
I think they will. I certainly think those that are poised to see themselves that way will. One of the things, Kimberly, as we wind down, I've had to come to grips with in my exuberance over these ideas is not everyone's going to hear you. Not everyone's going to be primed to hear this and understand that there's something called cognitive dissonance. We use that term a lot these days, and it exists, and it still exists. At the same time, it's refreshing to see so many others, by virtue of what's going on right now, particularly waking up and asking bigger questions. So this movie, both Thrive and Thrive 2, couldn't be here on this planet at a better time and a more important time.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I think if we recognize that we're part of an alive, interconnected universe, and that web is fundamentally a web of love. I believe consciousness is love, and that we are all connected. And so what does that mean about unconditional love? And what does it mean about keeping our relationships and that love primary, even as our worldviews are different? I don't know of a single family, including ours, that doesn't have a range of worldviews represented in it.
Absolutely.
And we just have to choose love and say we're maintaining this connection even as we navigate differently in how we relate to what's going on. And I think that's one of the things that we address a lot, and that Foster addresses in the Freedom Portal. He had a whole month, I think, on how to have challenging conversations and maintain relations when we really disagree about, potentially life-threatening choices that are being made. And that's the challenge of these times. And I think as we meet this challenge, we're going to really have tools that we've never had before on the planet. And so I'm grateful for it, even as I'm challenged by it.
Yes, there's the paradox again. I think we are living in a virtual, I don't know if I want to use that word, but a very real paradox right now. And yet there's something brilliant and beautiful about all that's unfurling. Opportunity as well as challenge are coexisting. Dichotomy on the precipice of change. I always talk about that. So it's great.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for all you're doing to help bring these conversations out. I really appreciate and love seeing you again after all this time.
I know. What a treat. I love what I do. I love the audience. And if I can make just a little teeny dent in all that we're going through in a good way, I'm grateful. So thank you.
Yeah.
So in closing, what would you say would be the singular message? You probably said it already, that you would want people to get from the film in a snapshot. Just a little question.
I would say the primary message that I would want people to get from Thrive 2 is that we really do already have what it takes to thrive on this planet, both for the planet and for people, in terms of access to clean energy that can help people have clean water and lights and heat and the things that are needed to free us into more harmonious, ways of interacting with each other and with the planet, and that we can create healthy ways of relating to our bodies, to each other, and that this notion of centralized authoritarian control is something that is really worth looking at and dismantling in honor of claiming something different and new. And as a result, I do believe that we can thrive. I think that it is a bold proposition that requires that we do the work of knowing ourselves and then responding to what it is that we see as a result of that fearless inquiry into who we really are. So I believe it's a call, and at the same time, just a really hopeful mirror. It's the mirror that I would like people to see themselves within, because I think we've had a distorted mirror for a long time that leaves people feeling, victim-y and down and like there isn't much that's possible. This is the best we can do. And who's to think this and that and the other thing? It's like, that's not necessary. We actually have a world of possibility, infinite possibility, as Nassim describes with quantum physics. And that I encourage everybody to see the movie, of course, and find your place within the world of solutions beckoning us.
We will, of course, have a link that will take you directly to where you can either stream, rent, purchase, and a myriad of options to take this and get comfortable. As I said, this is a sizable watch, about 2.5 hours, but well worth it. And like you said, it could have easily been 5 hours.
Yeah,
so
it's the same as Drive One. Both movies took us the same amount of time to. You can't quickly tell this story, so just settle in, get some popcorn. You can take a break between chapters, whatever's needed.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
I think that's we'll be talking about it. As a matter of fact, everyone, I'm planning on doing a full-on review on our blog at higherjourneys.com. We're gonna be working with Thrive a bit more. So
thank you.
We'll make sure to have all the information that you need. Now, listen, make sure you come on over to the after show. We are going to continue the conversation. No holds barred. We're going to just lay it out on the table. Obviously, it's a rabbit hole that would take quite a long time. We won't spend too much time. I'm not going to keep Kimberly too much longer so she can get back to making more good stuff. But join us over there, everyone. What a pleasure to have you. And what a delight and a treat to see you. And tell Foster I said hello, will you?
I will, and his love to you too. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. We'll see you over on Patreon. Talk to you soon.